This aircraft is relatively new and is being placed on dusty shelves. This aircraft requires extensive maintenance because it is falling apart, but it is not one of the older aircraft. This aircraft is an A220 and is much newer, and it has that new car smell, but this smell is temporary because it is being sold to a scrap dealer. This is not an isolated incident. It is happening right now. Additionally, this situation highlights a very concerning aspect of modern aviation. EgyptAir did not just retire its A220 fleet early. It literally dismantled these planes and sold their parts to airlines willing to pay high prices for components they couldn't find elsewhere. When you think about it, this seems like a ridiculous situation. An aircraft that was expected to revolutionize regional travel before even celebrating its 7th anniversary is now being treated as a plane that is being dismantled for parts. I still can't wrap my head around how they could do this. There may be something else wrong with this aircraft, perhaps a maintenance issue or an incorrect part was installed, or perhaps a chronic issue with these aircraft has come to light. The A220 was introduced with a simple promise: to transform intercity flights with unparalleled comfort and efficiency. To transform intercity flights with unparalleled comfort and efficiency. The company referred to this aircraft as the continuation of the C series, which was designed to be a savior for the company, but users believed it was intended for short-haul flights between regions, which was not the case. A regional jet was what it should have been. Innovative Pratt & Whitney engines, lightweight carbon composites, and advanced aerodynamic features promised a 25% increase in fuel efficiency in its class. Compared to older models, the cost was very reasonable. Those who used these aircraft were eager to fly them. However, EgyptAir systematically scrapped these aircraft, which were supposed to operate profitably for many years. There were other reasons for the scrapping, but the most significant was a chronic engine fault that caused frequent breakdowns. The places that acquired these aircraft have begun taking steps to transform their premises into expensive museums. This is because these aircraft had become very expensive. However, what makes this story so interesting is that these salvage parts are actually being purchased by Delta Airlines, the world's largest A220 operator, because their fleets refuse to end up in dusty hangars or on shelves. Those who made a desperate attempt to keep their aircraft in the air are the ones keeping EgyptAir's business model afloat. While this aircraft was heading to dusty shelves, others were also heading there. But a glimmer of hope emerged for them, and they gave up. Do you remember the excitement surrounding the A220's launch? This was not an evolutionary change. This aircraft seemed like it would change the world and had come from the future. In an industry that typically only modifies and expands existing aircraft bodies, this was a completely original design. Old planes were reducing the use of these planes, and in old planes, fuel consumption was higher. Comfort was zero, but why were they still being used mostly? Consider the A220, or rather the Bombardier C-Series before Airbus's remarkable rescue. The figures were astonishing. A 25% increase in fuel efficiency. Not a 5%, 10%, or 25% improvement. How did they discover these aircraft? Thanks to the turbofans developed by Pratt & Whitney, propulsion technology was fundamentally rethought. Airlines could now operate routes that were previously unprofitable thanks to the addition of carbon fiber composites to the structure. And the people who boarded these planes only later realized these changes. The moment you step onto the A220, you find yourself in the future of aviation. The real issue was the window, but these windows were very different. The seats were significantly wider than those in most narrow-body aircraft. Cabin noise is so low that you can have a normal conversation. And when these companies noticed this, they took action. Stricter environmental regulations had already been surpassed, and the thin route between secondary cities had become profitable. Passengers on this aircraft now liked it even more. The order book exploded. Flag carriers joined in. Large orders were placed by low-cost innovators. The future was clear for regional specialists. The task of tracking the future began immediately. Boeing and Embraer would have to radically reassess their plans in light of this aircraft. Short-haul flights had become the trend, surpassing long-haul flights. The success of this aircraft, bearing Airbus's colors, was almost guaranteed. This innovation was becoming the most important one because in the past, progress was slow, but now it was rapidly accelerating. Airlines could create an entire network around airports that could accommodate the specific aircraft requested by passengers without the need for significant infrastructure investments. Goals can sometimes be blocked, meaning that you may sometimes stumble, but if you are lucky, you can move forward easily. And what followed caused the industry to question everything it thought it knew about the introduction of groundbreaking aircraft. And now aircraft maintenance facilities are also evolving. Keep that in mind. Isn't that a great idea? Chief mechanics are examining the A220s on the ground and determining whether they are more valuable when disassembled or when flying. The calculations are devastating, and dismantling all the parts to sell to scrap dealers is considered the best option. EgyptAir's decision to retire its 6-year-old aircraft. The reason was neither accidents nor structural failures. It was something much more ordinary but terrifying. They couldn't find the spare parts, and the engines for these planes are always delayed due to a problem. Wing air valves have also been added to the list. Simple parts that should be easy to obtain are now subject to long delays. Cairo is not the only example of this situation. It's the same story from Riyadh to Atlanta. Delta supports the A220, but the planes remain grounded for weeks. JetBlue is missing out on revenue opportunities while waiting for the necessary components. Air Baltic previously supported this aircraft's flights, but suddenly refused to fly it for a period of time, stating, "I don't want to fly you." Unlike airlines operating mixed fleets, Air Baltic demonstrated complete commitment to the A220. If you operate a single aircraft type, each flight ban becomes exponentially more painful. For example, if one aircraft has engine issues, all flights could come to a standstill because the same issue could arise in other aircraft. The entire network could be affected. Risks that JetBlue or Delta can manage. An airline with a fleet of A220 aircraft faces existential risks due to the diversity of its fleet. How did we get here? The A220 supply chain? This situation is similar to traffic congestion during peak hours. It arises when there is very little demand, and when there is high demand but few parts available, business suddenly declines. Pratt & Whitney's ongoing struggle with chronic reliability issues in its groundbreaking engines is creating a vicious cycle. When there is high demand for spare parts, it's because there are many failures. Or someone might say, make more of these planes. But since this plane generally has many failures, there is high demand for spare parts. The demand cannot be met. Additionally, there are specialized parts for this plane, and some were heavily impacted during the COVID-19 pandemic because production decreased, and these effects are still ongoing. Labor shortages, raw material constraints, and quality control issues that have led to the rejection of entire production batches. As a result, airlines are dismantling new aircraft to keep old ones operational, which is only something they can do with aging fleets. 3 people are receiving organ transplants from an Airbus A220. Maintenance costs are astronomical. No one would be foolish enough to pay such amounts. The reliability of the flight schedule is declining. This is a surprising reality. Some of these newer aircraft are faulty and very expensive to repair, so the company will use them for other aircraft, i.e., use their parts. When the parts of a single jet keep the entire fleet flying, while sound aircraft remain grounded for months, the economy is thrown into disarray. If you talk to airline executives privately, you will hear their sincere disappointment. And none of the players expected such a surprising situation to happen all of a sudden. The aim was to prevent precisely this situation. But the story becomes even more worrying at this point. Technicians are now speaking out because the materials used in marketing have changed significantly, and they are very uncomfortable with this situation. Corrosion in 6-year-old aircraft. It's not just a small oxidation on a forgotten bracket, but active corrosion affecting the seat rails and the critical connections between the wing and the fuselage. Many aircraft were in this condition, but only a small portion were repaired and continued flying normally. Companies like Breeze reported these issues, but few took them seriously, leaving the companies in a bind. And the maintenance technician suddenly explained everything, and everyone was shocked. He said that the new planes were not coming with the features we expected, and that these features were coming from older planes. Then Transport Canada made a shocking announcement. They were lubricating these planes to prevent them from crashing badly. This was not a suggestion. It was required by law. If you miss this window, you endanger the safety of your passengers. And they explained everything in order. Finally, they revealed that if a wing is installed in the wrong place, it reduces performance and also causes increased fuel consumption. Something no one knew, and the companies had only recently discovered. And they were furious. And sometimes when the plane takes off, it encounters an error and requests instructions to land. The only reason for this is that when software developers make a small mistake, these situations arise. Every new discovery led to more scrutiny, longer downtime, and higher costs. The most important thing in these planes is the engines. When there is a small mistake in them, anything can happen, and they must be paid attention to. Pratt & Whitney's PW500G engine promised revolutionary efficiency. It masterfully demonstrated how complexity can lead to failure. Air Baltic, once the most vocal supporter of the A220, saw that the engines needed to be removed after only 1,000 operating cycles. This was very important in the design, and they needed to reach 5,000 cycles. Acoustic resonance, premature material deterioration, and problems with air release valves that could cause sudden pressure drops in the cabin. Every attempt at a solution led to new problems. Every solution led to new problems. And one of the top executives of the company that operated this aircraft began to speak bluntly. Managing the removal of engines is taking more of our time than organizing the expansion of the network. Software was not part of this issue either. The crew is becoming less responsive to real warnings due to unnecessary alerts. And when pilots are tired, they switch to autopilot. But now autopilots are giving more warnings, and everyone is scared. To prevent potential disasters, all flight control computers in the fleet need to be updated. Each manufacturer's bulletin seems like an unfulfilled promise. Flight cancellations are changing everything, even the fate of this aircraft. The money that could be used for route expansion funding is being spent on every extra hour of inspection. Note this pattern. This is not an isolated issue. Thousands of small malfunctions are causing systemic erosion. It may be possible to address each issue individually. However, when combined, they turn daily operations into a firefight. Some are groundbreaking and have their own successes, but others do not. Why? Think about it. The challenges facing the A220 are different from the usual teething problems seen with new aircraft. They are more stubborn, more exhausting, more fundamental. And this company is in a very important position. If it makes a mistake, the company will go under. Can they salvage the A220's reputation before it becomes a cautionary tale in aviation? They appear confident in public, have accelerated supplier partnerships, enhanced collaboration with Pratt & Whitney, increased spare parts production, launched new maintenance programs monthly, and expedited certifications for alternative components. They are sending a message to everyone, and whatever it means something. This aircraft is too strategic to abandon and too important to fail. Is there any positive aspect to this situation that could alleviate the lingering doubts? When you speak with operators, you will hear a mix of cautious optimism and persistent disappointment. Delta is asking for support from everyone, and this support is always positive for the company because it is way ahead in terms of fuel consumption. It uses very little fuel. Behind closed doors, Air Baltic continues to describe this as transformative. However, concerns remain. Planes are still grounded. Routes are still inactive. Maintenance costs continue to rise. And there is a bad situation. Orders are no longer coming in as they used to, and the situation has reached a standstill. According to reports, some aircraft lessors are questioning the long-term value of the assets. Time is running out with each passing day. One reason is that it is too risky. Airlines urgently need efficient regional jets to replace their aging fleets. Some regions believe that short-haul flights require precision. In the highly competitive narrow-body aircraft market, Airbus's reputation is at stake. If this company cannot achieve this, there is a risk of failure with the A220 aircraft, which has reliability issues. If they overcome these issues, there will be no problem. But if they cannot, there will be significant challenges. However, there is another perspective to consider. Everything that goes wrong happens to something beautiful. There is a process to this. Boeing was on the verge of bankruptcy because of the 747. There was no chance of selling a single aircraft. The 787 was extremely successful after surviving battery fires. Perhaps this aircraft is currently facing difficulties, but like other aircraft, it will grow and continue on its path. Time will tell. Or perhaps the situation is fundamentally different. A ruthless economy, fragile supply chains, and modern complexity may have created problems that previous generations never encountered. Flight by flight, quarter by quarter, the evidence will emerge. This aircraft company may do something very big and eliminate this situation, or it may have to wait to become an aircraft destined for dusty shelves. It's in their hands. Which of the following outcomes seems more likely? With thousands of routes and millions of dollars at stake, airlines around the world are currently making this very calculation. And this aircraft must certainly be among the important ones. It reveals what happens when operational reality clashes with the aviation industry's goals. The vision was this: an innovative regional jet that would change passenger expectations and efficiency standards, and materials and engines sourced from critical aircraft. Everything the industry wanted. That's the reality. Millions of passengers were transported on over 400 aircraft, but ongoing operational uncertainties cast a shadow. Most importantly, there was an issue with the engine, and no one could resolve it. Complex maintenance that wears down experienced operators. The malfunctions originated from Pratt & Whitney engines, which were expected to be groundbreaking. Airlines were forced to find solutions they had never considered before due to production difficulties. For example, they had to take parts from other faulty aircraft to repair this one, and they will continue to do so. There is no end to this. Despite everything, the A220 continues to gain new fans. Why? Because when it works, it's amazing. The 25% fuel savings are real. The passenger experience is truly life-changing. Making routes with few passengers profitable is truly revolutionary. This situation has now emerged. In the past, they would have done the same thing again. We expect evolutionary reliability and demand revolutionary performance. The only thing we want is safety, and since we are in the 21st century, we are technologically advanced. So why are we still using outdated methods? The difficulties experienced with the A220 remind us that innovation comes at a price. Management discomfort and grounded aircraft are sometimes used to measure this price. The price is paid in the form of flight cancellations. This constantly calls into question our belief in technological progress. According to Airbus, these are just growing pains. Critics, however, question whether these are warning signs, and important things will be transferred in the future. But one thing is already clear: there has never been such a delicate balance between innovation and reliability. If you make the mistake of thinking about future things, you will fall behind what is happening today. If you are too cautious, you will lose tomorrow. The A220 is still in use by satisfied operators around the world. These orders are still generating significant interest, while others are being hindered. In aviation, if a plan isn't executed, today's breakthrough could become tomorrow's burden. Where do you think this balance lies? Have you traveled as a passenger or professional on the A220? Do you think it's a miracle? Share your thoughts in the comments section. This is more than just an airplane. It's about how we will continue to fly in the future, each time facing a difficult choice. Join the discussion and subscribe for more realistic analyses of the aviation industry's successes and failures. We will understand that cost is more important than anything else. So let's all meet in the comments. The difficulties experienced with the A220 remind us that innovation comes at a price. Management discomfort and grounded aircraft are sometimes used to measure this price. The price is paid in the form of flight cancellations. This constantly calls into question our belief in technological progress. According to Airbus, these are just growing pains. Critics, however, question whether these are warning signs, and important things will be transferred in the future. But one thing is already clear: there has never been such a delicate balance between innovation and reliability. If you make the mistake of thinking about future things, you will fall behind what is happening today. If you are too cautious, you will lose tomorrow. The A220 is still in use by satisfied operators around the world. These orders are still generating significant interest, while others are being hindered. In aviation, if a plan isn't executed, today's breakthrough could become tomorrow's burden. Where do you think this balance lies? Have you traveled as a passenger or professional on the A220? Do you think it's a miracle? Share your thoughts in the comments section. This is more than just an airplane. It's about how we will continue to fly in the future, each time facing a difficult choice. Join the discussion and subscribe for more realistic analyses of the aviation industry's successes and failures. We will understand that cost is more important than anything else. So let's all meet in the comments.